Hello everyone, my name is Farhan Ahmed and I'm a lecturer at DSU Sufa University, Karachi. And today I'll be discussing a topic called contemporary issues in business, as you can see behind me. So we'll start the journey with the concept given by Thomas Friedman, who spoke about concept of globalization in his book called The World is Flat, which is one of the best-selling books. So we understand the concept of globalization is very old. It emerged about 1492. That's what we date back to. Otherwise, if we look at the ancient, background of this concept, it's really old. So if we try and go into the history, we see that all the old civilizations, Egyptian civilization, Indus Valley civilization, and the other civilization that existed back in the days, they also sort of like traded with each other. So if you talk about this concept, globalization means cross-border flow of ideas, trade, communication, and many other things. So globalization is a very old concept, as I've already established, and when we discuss this concept, there are three eras of globalization according to Thomas Friedman. The first era that he discusses is that era starts from 1492 and it ends on 1820. So what he says that in the very first era of globalization, the countries, they went viral. So the representation of the countries took place during this era, and as we are all aware, that between 1400 and up to say 1800 century, there was the era of Western colonization. So Western countries had established their colonies all over the world, and this is how they would represent themselves. So that's the first thing that we understand, that yes, there was a Western colonization, and during this era, the colonies, the countries, they went viral. And in the very first era, the size of the world shrank from size large to size medium. This is what Thomas Friedman says, that the size of the world shrank, and it shrank from the size large to size medium. That's the first era. These are the two characteristics of this era, apart from the fact that there was Western colonization taking place. Then Thomas Friedman says, in terms of business, in terms of connectivity, the world even became more, the world became even smaller, and the second era starts from 1820 and it ends on 2000. And this is where Thomas Friedman says, during this era of globalization, companies went viral. And as we are aware that during 1980s, we had companies like IBM and other companies were emerging during that time. And so was internet. It was going global. So we understand that the connectivity actually increased during that time, and the companies went viral. That's the second era of globalization, okay? And why are we discussing it? Because we want to understand contemporary issues in business, and businesses have become popular, they have become successful with the concept of the globalization. So we understand that the third era, after the second era, where size of the world shrank from size medium to size small, and it was dominated by the emergence of multinational companies. That's something we understand. And during this era, a lot of things happened that we'll be discussing. We'll be discussing how the world became a truly global village with the help of some agreements that took place between the rich countries after the Second World War. But you want to understand, during the second era, we had First World War and we had Second World War. And I don't want to get into the details how there were two groups fighting with each other in the First World War and Second World War. But there was a desperate need to create peace around the world. So that's something we want to discuss. That yes, during this era, 1820 and 2000, the First World War took place between 1914 and 1918. And during this war, we saw there was on one hand, we had Austria-Hungary Empire, we had Russia, we had, countries like Ottoman Empire. They were all on, other countries like Austria-Hungary were on one place, Russia was also with them. The Serbia was on one hand, that was attacked by Austrian-Hungary Empire. Serbia, Russia, France, Britain, they were in one group. Austria-Hungary, Germany, and Ottoman Empire were in the other group. And they were like, two groups, they fought with each other. So there was a desperate need to create peace around the world so that business activity could flourish and it can expand, so that the trade could go on. So we understand there was a second era, but the third era, which is rather more interesting, is the era that is globalization 3.0, as referred by Thomas Friedman. And he says that during the third era, the size of the world shrank from size small to size tiny. So world has truly become a global village, and the interconnectedness and the interdependence is very strong. It has intensified, and during this era, he says that the individuals are going viral. So with the help of YouTube, like right now I'm recording myself, this video can be viewed by maximum number of people all over the globe. So that is again a concept that we want to understand, that yes, there were three eras of globalization, and the world has truly become a global village with the help of the levelers, with the help of the flatteners. So what Thomas Friedman says, that the global playing field has become flattened for everyone. Right now we see with the advent of technology, a person who is sitting in a village, if he is going for vlogging, if he's making videos about his cooking, that can go all over the world, and he's making more money compared with a CEO sitting in a city. So we understand that globalization and this flattening of the level playing field has empowered everyone to contribute to the global economy. So we want to understand that yes, there were 10 different events as mentioned by Thomas Friedman, in which we had fall of Berlin Wall 1991. We have Netscape, the new internet browsing system that came through. We have workflow system, we have insourcing, outsourcing, supply chaining, and so on and so forth. There has been 10 events highlighted by Thomas Friedman, which you can look into the book, The World is Flat, which have truly made this world a truly global village, where we say that the playing field has been leveled for everyone. So the world has been divided into two groups, levelers and leviathans. That's something I can discuss later because it is related to another book called The Leveling, What's Next After Globalization by Michael O'Sullivan. So that's the concept I can discuss later. But so far what we are trying to understand, when we discuss the topic contemporary issues in business, we want to understand businesses have become global. And we have gone through the eras of globalization, how globalization has emerged. As I said, in the ancient world, we also had the connectivity. We also had the trading system, a very sophisticated trading system, mind you. But I'm not going through all the Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Classical Antiquity, Middle Ages, and all these things. I'm just looking at the modern era right now. So we understand that after we had, all the three eras, we had two world wars in the second era, and the Second World War took place from 1939 to 1945. So we see there was someone called Woodrow Wilson right up here. Woodrow Wilson was the 28th president of America, and he won Nobel Prize because he established something called League of Nations. As we have got right now United Nations, that claims to maintain peace in the world, that is a international body. Okay. Similarly, we had another body back in the days that's called League of Nations, and the primary purpose of League of Nations was to establish peace in the world, because there was a dire need of establishing peace, creating peace in the world after the First World War, because all the countries were fighting with each other, and he came up with the idea of liberalism. But unfortunately, the idea of liberalism did not go down well, because we had, after the First World War, we had the emergence of, dictators like Benito Mussolini from Italy. We have got Joseph Stalin from Russia. We have got Adolf Hitler from Germany. All these people were very realist, and if you understand what autocracy is and how the autocrats work, so we want to understand that their mindset is not liberal mindset. They do not accept everything. They go with a certain mentality. So League of the Nation failed, and it failed to maintain peace in the world, and the business activity was badly hampered. And we see that there was sort of like another spell of war, and that was the Second World War. But before the Great Second World War took place, we had got something called Great Depression in 1929. So business activity all over the world slowed down, and that resulted into Great Depression. And those of you who want to understand the difference between recession and depression, depression lasts for more than 2 quarters. If business activity does not pick up for more than 2 or 3 sessions, then it turns into depression. So we understand that yes, there's a huge background to business issues. Those days, business issues were protectionism, high tariff, more barriers, trade barriers. All these were the business issues at that time. Those were the contemporary issues of that time. So all the world leaders, especially from the rich countries, they met in New Hampshire in America in 1944, and they came up with an agreement called Bretton Woods Agreement. They said that in order to create peace in the world, we have to come up with some kind of agreement. And they said that the only way out to create peace in the world is the economic integration, is the economic independence. They said if France wants to buy the steel from Germany and Germany wants to buy coal from France, the only way without going through war they can do it is through a proper trading system, import and exports. So this was the idea behind Bretton Woods Agreement. It's not the idea of boosting the economy or increasing or maximizing the gross domestic product of the entire world. It was not the global GDP. It was not about any particular country's economy. It was about maintaining peace, because that was the need of the after Second World War. As you are aware, the entire Europe was left devastated. So we wanted to create some peace. And one of the leaders, Woodrow Wilson, Winston Churchill from Great Britain, he pitched the idea of free economic zone, and that resulted into European Union. Again, that is a separate topic, but all I'm trying to establish that how we have made sure that the business activity keep going on. So this agreement, Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, where all the top countries, rich countries came together, they thought that we should create peace in the world through some agreement. That agreement took the form of General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade by 1948. And that's the same agreement after many rounds of negotiations between different countries. It became World Trade Organization on the 1st of January 1995. Excuse me. So when the World Trade Organization came to the scene, it was on the 1st of January 1995, and after many rounds, most probably 8 or 9 major rounds, after Uruguay round of negotiation, all the countries agreed on one international body on trade, and that was WTO. And today 97% of the trade take place. 97% of the trade of the world trade takes place under the umbrella of WTO. So this is a very important body. Apart from the other international bodies that were established in 1950s, IMF, International Monetary Fund, apart from, just give me 1 second guys, I'll just pause myself. Okay, so apologies for stopping the video. I had to talk to someone. So I was talking about, yes, at that time when we were discussing 1992, 1991 WTO had emerged, and we see that majority of the world trade started taking place under the umbrella of a World Trade Organization. We see that yes, all the countries came under this umbrella, but right now WTO is under doldrums, is going through severe crisis thanks to America, as America has blocked the appointment of WTO judges. There's no one there to sort of like take decision about the WTO matter. So that's one area that we can discuss. And apart from that, I was discussing about the other international bodies. IMF, World Bank, they all emerged during 1950s, and there was another interesting body called International Trade Organization, which could not materialize due to objection from America. So we understand there's a huge background of not only century, an entire millennium, which has created this business environment today in which we have business activity like through e-commerce, through digitalization, and all these things. So we understand now that yes, WTO is sort of like struggling just like other international bodies, because we understand we are moving from globalization to deglobalization. We see the international bodies have failed to tackle the problems of the 21st century. So we are moving towards a different era where we will be having two different sets of, say, international bodies. One might be headed by China, other might be headed by America. So the business world, as it seems very, in single piece or unified, it's not the case anymore. We will be going through a process called deglobalization, as mentioned by Michael O'Sullivan in his book called The Leveling, What's Next After Globalization. And then we'll be going through something called re-globalization. There will be a shift. We have to sort of like redefine. We have to sort of like change everything. So we have to come up with more innovation with the international institutions as we have, because we have already seen the failure of United Nations in Gaza, United Nations Security Council, and United Nations in Palestine, and Israel and Palestine conflict, where we see that they have failed to establish an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. There is no pause in the offensive launched by Israel, so that's one thing. Apart from that, we have also seen the failure of WHO in the in the days where we had the COVID-19, where 500 million shots of AstraZeneca was held by America. It was not approved by federal authority, drug authority, but people were dying in South Asia, like in India and Pakistan and elsewhere, and they did not help. So there was a very unequal, distribution of the vaccines. So we don't want to go into the details of how these international institutions are failing, but we do see that there is a dominancy in WTO of major powers like China and India. They are dominating this power, this WTO, and they are exercising their influence to sort of like take over the world trade, and all these things are going on. That's one such issue where businesses are struggling. But we want to see, lately there have been some other issues. We want to understand the first concept, impact of globalization on business. So I have given you sufficient detail on globalization, how globalization has evolved over the period of time, and how is it ending, because some people believe that globalization is dead. We should say goodbye to globalization, because the world is moving towards globalization, from globalization to regionalization. We are more divided and polarized, and we are going back to the same point 100 years ago, where we stood, where we had two groups, and those two groups were fighting with each other. Right now we have G7 and BRICS. BRICS is headed by China, G7 is headed by America. So the entire story is the same, and I sometimes do try and analyze things in this way. I use this pattern of comparing the history, and this is something I can cover in the next lecture, that how the things are the same, and we can very much claim that we are heading towards another conflict. And of course, everything is being led through the economic conflict. I mean, if we will be going for war, the major reason will be economic conflict, so economic disintegration. That will be the major reason. So we want to understand impact of globalization on business, but we want to look at some of the contemporary issues. One of the contemporary issues for my students who are studying this course from me is digital transformation. The world has not become truly digitalized place yet. There are many countries, many places where digitalization has not penetrated. It has not made its way. So it still has to make its inroads into the territories where we don't have the smart gadgets or internet connectivity, so that everyone around the world have an opportunity to earn and to contribute to this global economy. That's one issue, digitalization. And some countries on purpose deliberately try to prevent this thing, uh, because this brings transparency and this brings fairness, as it has been observed in some of the elections around the world, recent elections held in Pakistan, where it's been accused that had it been a digitalized elections, the results would have been more fairer, and it would have been accepted. It would have had more acceptability by the different stakeholders. So that's the thing. Sustainability, sustainability is the concept where we should meet our demands or needs without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their demands or needs. So that's another concept that we want to understand, that sustainable development where we should not rely on the fossil fuel, where we have oil, gas, and coal. We should try and shift to renewable energy like solar, hydro, and wind energy. So I don't see majority of the businesses going green right now. As a matter of fact, that some of the companies have been denying that there is a concept called global warming. And we have come across some revelations by Shell company that they knew that global warming was taking place in 1960s after the research, but they kept hiding it. And today the temperature of the world has reached 1.5 degrees. So the impact is so severe that the environmental cycle, the extreme weather conditions that are taking place right now, it has become irreversible. We cannot reverse this pattern because glaciers are melting and we have failed miserably to protect the environment. So this is it will only get worse before it gets better. That's what I can say. Then come diversity. As you see, okay, there is a rise of there's a rise of nationalist approach all over the world. There's a rise of nationalism. So countries like countries like India, countries like America, where we see, especially in America, we see there is a rise of white supremacy. There have been intensification. There has been a surge in attacks carried out by the white supremacists on the people of color, as we call it. So that's again, it's a huge issue. We know the example of France where they tried to ban, or they banned the scarf. That's again against the human rights, and it's against the women empowerment. It's against the values of liberalism. Because as a person, if you choose to do something, you should be allowed to. And again, this is a very burning issue, diversity. So that's a contemporary issues where businesses have to deal with the people from other cultures and they have to engage in cross-cultural interaction. That's another issue. So that's something, as a global manager, if you are working on contemporary issues in business, you have to identify within your company that where do we have a gap where we can bring improvement, and that could be one area of diversity. And I'm giving you some of the issues that are being faced by the businesses nowadays. It's very hard to have a diverse workforce because everyone has got their own needs and their own values, and sometimes managers struggle to maintain. So that's another. Supply chain disruptions. We have already seen an unprecedented disruption in the supply chain during, as you're aware, during the pandemic, where we see that all the supply chains around the world were disrupted and they came to halt. It was a total paralysis. And it took time to recover, but we see there's another conflict that has been brewing in the Strait of Hormuz, where we see there's a problem. There's being attacks being carried out by Houthi rebels on the ships, and there was yesterday one ship that was being that sank. And I am forgetting the name of the ship, but we see that that's a huge challenge because 15% of the world commerce passes through this channel, and as I'm forgetting, the sailor from Britain said, I'm forgetting his name, that the destiny of the world belongs on its water. I'll tell you the name of that sailor, I'm forgetting it. It's a very famous quote. But yeah, the last thing, apart from supply chain disruptions, supply chain disruptions are taking place for many reasons. Energy crisis, semiconductor crisis, protectionism, as we have seen the US-China trade war, and then comes ethical issues. Of course, businesses will always have some form of moral or ethical issues, and we see in terms of ethical issues, data privacy has been a huge issue. Just recently, TikTok, CEO and Mark Zuckerberg were interviewed. They were interrogated by the Senate in America, where Mark Zuckerberg was asked why Instagram was promoting child abuse when your company has values or rules in place. In fact, the American rules are against it. So why are you doing this? And he was not able to answer this question, and he could not compensate the victims of child abuse as well. So we understand ethical issues are there. It's not the first time where breach in privacy has taken place. We have the issue of Cambridge Analytica. We have a case study of Cambridge Analytica where They try to manipulate the opinion of the masses, and Donald Trump won the election. So ethical issues are there in different sectors and segments. So we understand that these are some of the issues, but there are many other issues: global inflation, global economic slowdown, global indebtedness, and there are country-specific issues as well. It's not only the generic issues as I've mentioned, artificial intelligence. All these challenges are there for the businesses, and they have to deal with them. Now we want to understand impact of globalization on business. What does globalization help businesses with? The first thing, businesses get an access to the cheap labor. If a multinational company is going global and is opening a subsidiary in another country, they get access to what? Cheap labor, the workforce, cheap workforce. Okay, that's the first one. So the second one, they also get access to the cheap resources. So if I'm going to a country which is rich in resources, I'm establishing my subsidiary, I'll get access to the cheap resources. So globalization has empowered businesses. They have given them opportunity to go and exploit the resources around the world, be it the human resource, be it the technological resource, be it the capital resource, be it the material resource. So we understand. Then access to technology. When globalization takes place, companies get access to the technology, sometimes modern technology, if a third world country is going to a first world country for investment. So that's another thing. So that has empowered. So if someone from Pakistan is going to invest in Dubai, Dubai is highly technologized place, so compared with Pakistan at least. So you will get access to technology, and that's something you can utilize to your advantage, and you will have it at your disposal. So access to knowledge, that's another area. You get access to knowledge when you are working with the countries that are developed countries, or the countries that have a core knowledge in certain area, as mentioned by Michael Porter, that each country has got national advantage. So if you're heading to a country where they have got competency in one area, you'll be able to utilize that knowledge. And of course, you get a wider customer base. You get access to greater number of customers. As you see, Apple has got manufacturing plant in China, and they have also got a manufacturing plant in India. So comparatively with China and India, countries like Vietnam and Thailand might be cheaper. In fact, Pakistan might be cheaper, but Apple has subsidiaries in those countries. Why? Because they want to have greater customers, greater number of customers. They want to have access to the potential customers, and China is one of the largest markets, or in fact the largest market for Apple phones. So we see that when we are discussing contemporary issues in business, we have to understand the concept of globalization. Not only the concept of globalization, is deglobalization and reglobalization. So we want to understand all these three terms. And I have mentioned the book, Michael O'Sullivan's book, Deglobalization, or the labeling what's after globalization. So that's the book you can have a look at. Of course, the book called The World is Flat is very important. And I think a book on business ethics by Michael Sandel will be very effective as well. So we have understood globalization and how this international rule-based system was created to maintain peace in the world. But it was the economic integration that has brought stability to this world. And we see the recent contemporary issues like sustainability, digital transformation, disinformation, hybrid war, information war, propaganda. All these are the issues that we are facing as business entrepreneurs and business pundits. So your business acumen should be such that you understand these things and impact of globalization. Of course, you get access to cheap labor, resources, access to technology. There are disadvantages as well. That's something we can discuss later, but this was the first topic of our course outline, contemporary issues in business, impact of globalization on the businesses. So we'll discuss the second topic in the next lecture. Thank you so much.